The Grand Entrance. The Zevran Dominion Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system with all the subtlety of a fireworks display. 280 warships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant light of Sol. Each vessel was a masterpiece of aesthetic engineering, towering spires, polished obsidian plating and weapon arrays that pulsed with luminous energy. The formation itself was geometric perfection, concentric rings rotating slowly around the flagship, creating an almost hypnotic visual effect. It was designed to inspire awe and terror. Ambassador Krell Voss stood on the bridge of the Sovereign Dawn, the largest vessel in the Armada, and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Through the viewport, Earth hung like a blue marble in the distance, small and fragile. He had done this 43 times before on 43 different worlds. The pattern never changed. "Initiate the broadcast," Krell said calmly, adjusting the ceremonial sash across his chest. His communications officer nodded and activated the transmission array. Within seconds, every satellite, every communication network, every screen on Earth would receive the message. Krell had refined it over decades. The wording was precise, the tone perfectly balanced between diplomatic courtesy and unmistakable threat. "People of Earth," Krell began, his voice smooth and rehearsed. "I am Ambassador Krell Voss of the Zevran Dominion. We come to you not as conquerors, but as representatives of a greater galactic order. You stand at a crossroads. Accept our guidance, join the Dominion peacefully, and your world will prosper under our protection. Resist and face the consequences of standing alone against the universe." He paused for effect, letting the weight of his words settle. "You have 72 hours to respond. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Krell turned to his command staff, all of them watching him with the quiet confidence of people who had never lost. "Begin the formation sweep," he ordered. "I want every major population center to see us overhead. Let them understand what they're facing." The Armada began its slow descent toward Earth's orbit, engines glowing like miniature suns. It was a show of force perfected over centuries. Krell had seen entire planetary governments collapse within hours of such a display. Leaders would panic, populations would riot, and by the time the deadline arrived, representatives would be begging to negotiate terms of surrender. He expected chaos. He expected fear. What he got instead was silence. The response. 70 minutes after the broadcast, Krell received the first reply. It came not from a panicked president or a desperate military commander, but from a middle-aged woman sitting calmly behind a desk. The background showed the emblem of the United Earth Defense Council. Her name appeared at the bottom of the screen. Director Sarah Chin, UEDC Strategic Operations. "Ambassador Voss," she said pleasantly, as if greeting an old colleague. "Thank you for your message. We've reviewed your fleet's arrival and your proposal." Krell straightened. "Good. They were already negotiating. However," Chin continued, "we have some questions before we proceed." Krell frowned slightly. "Questions?" "Your flagship, the Sovereign Dawn, impressive design. But our analysts noticed something unusual. Your main engine output registers at only 42% of what a vessel that size should require for stable orbit. That suggests either your ship is significantly lighter than it appears, or your engines are underpowered. Which is it?" Krell blinked. What kind of opening statement was this? Chin didn't wait for an answer. She glanced at a tablet beside her. "We also noticed your weapon arrays. Beautiful glow effect, very intimidating. But the energy signatures are inconsistent with active charging cycles. They're running off auxiliary power, aren't they? Essentially, decorative." Krell's mouth opened, but no words came out. "And your formation," Chin continued, her tone still polite. "Concentric rings look wonderful, but the spacing between your ships is inefficient for mutual defense. If you were attacked from multiple vectors, your outer vessels would block fire lanes for your inner ships. It's a parade formation, not a combat formation." She smiled faintly. "So here's our question, Ambassador. Are you here to actually fight us, or are you here to look like you can fight us? Because right now we're leaning toward the second option." The screen went dark. Krell stood frozen, his carefully crafted confidence crumbling. Around him, his officers exchanged nervous glances. "Sir," his tactical officer said cautiously. "Should we respond?" Krell didn't answer. He couldn't. In 43 previous encounters, no one had ever called his bluff. No one had ever analyzed the fleet. They had simply looked at the size, the lights, the formation, and surrendered. But humans didn't surrender. They laughed. The mockery. Within 6 hours, Earth's response had gone viral. Social media platforms exploded with commentary. Military analysts published detailed breakdowns of the Zevran fleet, pointing out every flaw Chen had mentioned and dozens more. Engineers created animated diagrams showing how the formation would collapse under coordinated fire. Comedians made jokes comparing the ships to parade floats. One video in particular went viral. A teenager in her bedroom sitting in front of a screen showing footage of the Armada, casually eating cereal while listing off design flaws. Okay, so like, the engines are way too small for those hulls. That's basic physics. And the weapon arrays? Those aren't even pointed at anything useful. They're just glowing. It's like putting Christmas lights on a tank and calling it an upgrade. She took another bite of cereal. Honestly, I've seen better designs in video games. The video had 50 million views in 3 hours. Krell watched it all from his quarters, his hands trembling. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Humans were supposed to be terrified, desperate, begging for mercy. Instead they were laughing at him. His second-in-command, Subcommander Tarek, entered cautiously. "Sir, the Council is demanding an update. They want to know why humanity hasn't responded formally." "They have responded," Krell said bitterly, gesturing at the screen. "This is their response." Tarek hesitated. "Should we proceed to Phase 2? Begin the descent protocols." Krell stared at the planet below. For the first time in his career he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. "No," he said quietly. "We wait." "Wait for what?" Krell didn't answer. Because he didn't know. The Silent Watcher. 200,000 kilometers away, hidden in the shadow of Earth's moon, Commodore Iris Hale watched the Zevran Armada through a tactical display. Her command ship, the Sentinel's Edge, was invisible to conventional sensors. Cold engines, minimal emissions, hull coated in reactive stealth plating. Around her, 17 other warships of the Aegis Enclave waited in perfect silence, weapons primed but inactive. "Commodore," her tactical officer said. "Public sentiment is running 92% dismissive. Civilian analysts have identified most of the fleet's structural weaknesses. Recommendation? We hold," Iris said calmly. "Let them keep talking." Her executive officer, Commander Malik, glanced at her. "And if the Dominion decides to make a move?" Iris's expression didn't change. "Then we stop holding." She leaned back in her chair, studying the alien formation. They were beautiful ships, she had to admit. Elegant. Impressive. Completely useless in a real fight. Humanity had fought wars before reaching the stars, brutal, grinding conflicts that taught hard lessons about efficiency, adaptability, and survival. Every human warship was built with those lessons in mind. No wasted space, no decorative plating, no formations designed for appearances. The Zevran didn't understand that. They had spent centuries intimidating primitive species, never once facing an opponent who fought back. Iris almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "Commodore," her communications officer said suddenly. "New contact. Multiple hyperspace signatures inbound. Distance, 4 million kilometers and closing." Iris sat up. Identification. The officer's face went pale. "Marauder clans, ma'am. At least 60 ships. They're not slowing down." Iris's jaw tightened. The Marauders were nothing like the Dominion. They were raiders, survivors, veterans of 100 wars. They didn't care about intimidation or diplomacy. They cared about loot. And the Zevran Armada was about to become the biggest target in the system. "All ships," Iris said quietly. "Prepare to engage." The Marauders. The Marauder fleet tore into the system like a pack of starving wolves. 63 ships, none of them matching in design or origin. They were scavenged, rebuilt, and covered in scorch marks from 1,000 battles. Hulls were mismatched patchwork, engines burned hot and dirty, and weapon mounts bristled from every available surface. They didn't fly in formation, they swarmed. On the bridge of the Sovereign Dawn, alarms screamed. "Unidentified vessels approaching at high velocity," the sensor officer shouted, his voice cracking. "They're not slowing down. Impact trajectory in 7 minutes." Krell Voss stumbled forward, gripping the command rail. "What? Who are they?" "Marauders," Subcommander Tarek said, his face pale. "Raider clans. They must have detected our fleet signature and followed us through hyperspace." Krell's mind raced. Marauders. He had heard stories, whispers of ruthless scavengers who preyed on the weak, who struck without warning and left nothing behind. But those were just stories. Exaggerations. "Hail them," Krell ordered. "Tell them we are the Zevran Dominion. Tell them we." "Sir, they're opening fire." The first volley hit the outer ring of the Armada before Krell could finish his sentence. 3 Zevran ships exploded instantly, their decorative hulls offering no resistance to the crude but devastatingly effective Marauder railguns. The shockwaves rippled through the formation, and suddenly the beautiful geometric pattern dissolved into chaos. Evasive maneuvers. Krell screamed. Return fire. But the Zevran fleet had never fired its weapons in anger. Crews scrambled to activate systems they had only trained on in simulations. Targeting computers lagged. Power distribution failed. Half the weapon arrays didn't even charge. The Marauders tore through them like tissue paper. Krell watched in horror as ship after ship died. The Radiant Glory split in half. The Dawn's Triumph tumbled out of control, its engines dead. The Celestial Harmony tried to flee and was cut down within seconds. Shields. Krell shouted desperately. Raise shields. They're failing, sir. The emitters can't handle sustained fire, they were never designed for. Another explosion. Another ship gone. Krell's hands shook. This couldn't be happening. Not to him. Not to the Dominion. Sir, Tarek said quietly, his voice hollow. We need to retreat. We can't retreat. Krell snapped. The Council will. The Council isn't here. Tarek grabbed Krell's shoulder. We're going to die if we stay. Krell stared at the tactical display. 40 ships lost in less than 4 minutes. The Marauders were circling now, picking off stragglers, methodically dismantling what had once been the pride of the Dominion. And then, through the chaos, a single thought pierced his panic. The humans. Open a channel, Krell said hoarsely. To Earth. Now. Chapter 6, The Plea. Director Sarah Chin was in a meeting when the transmission came through. Her assistant interrupted, apologetic but firm. Ma'am, the Dominion is hailing us. It's urgent. Chin raised an eyebrow. Urgent? They're under attack. Chin dismissed the meeting and pulled up the feed. Krell Voss appeared on screen and she almost didn't recognize him. The polished ambassador was gone. His ceremonial sash was torn, his face covered in sweat and ash, his eyes wide with terror. Director Chin, he gasped. Please. We need your help. Chin leaned back in her chair, her expression neutral. Ambassador. I thought you were here to protect us. Please? Krell's voice cracked. We're being slaughtered. Marauders, they came out of nowhere, we can't. Please, you have to. Ambassador, Chin said calmly, cutting him off. 72 hours ago you threatened my planet. You told us to surrender or face consequences. Now you're asking for our protection? Krell's face twisted with desperation. I know. But please, whatever grievances you have with the Dominion, these Marauders will not stop with us. They will come for you next. If you don't act now. Chin glanced at a second screen, where real-time tactical data showed the Marauder assault. 63 hostile ships. Zevran fleet down to less than 200 and falling fast. Casualties mounting. She tapped her fingers on the desk, thinking. Please, Krell whispered. Chin sighed. Commodore Hale, are you listening? A new voice came through the channel, cool and composed. I'm here, Director. Assessment. Marauders are tearing through the Dominion fleet. If we don't intervene, the Armada will be gone in 10 minutes. After that, the Marauders will likely probe Earth's defenses. Recommendation. There was a pause. Then, engage. Chin nodded slowly. Rules of engagement? Minimal force. Precision strikes. Make it clean. Approved. Chin looked back at Krell. Ambassador, you're about to see what a real military looks like. Try not to blink. The transmission ended. Open a channel, Krell said hoarsely. To Earth. Now. Chapter 6, The Plea. Director Sarah Chin was in a meeting when the transmission came through. Her assistant interrupted, apologetic but firm. Ma'am, the Dominion is hailing us. It's urgent. Chin raised an eyebrow. Urgent? They're under attack. Chin dismissed the meeting and pulled up the feed. Krell Voss appeared on screen and she almost didn't recognize him. The polished ambassador was gone. His ceremonial sash was torn, his face covered in sweat and ash, his eyes wide with terror. Director Chin, he gasped. Please. We need your help. Chin leaned back in her chair, her expression neutral. Ambassador. I thought you were here to protect us. Please? Krell's voice cracked. We're being slaughtered. Marauders, they came out of nowhere, we can't. Please, you have to. Ambassador, Chin said calmly, cutting him off. 72 hours ago you threatened my planet. You told us to surrender or face consequences. Now you're asking for our protection? Krell's face twisted with desperation. I know. But please, whatever grievances you have with the Dominion, these marauders will not stop with us. They will come for you next. If you don't act now. Chen glanced at a second screen, where real-time tactical data showed the marauder assault. 63 hostile ships. Zevran fleet down to less than 200 and falling fast. Casualties mounting. She tapped her fingers on the desk, thinking. Please, Krell whispered. Chen sighed. Commodore Hale, are you listening? A new voice came through the channel, cool and composed. I'm here, Director. Assessment. Marauders are tearing through the Dominion fleet. If we don't intervene, the Armada will be gone in 10 minutes. After that, the marauders will likely probe Earth's defenses. Recommendation. There was a pause. Then, engage. Chen nodded slowly. Rules of engagement? Minimal force. Precision strikes. Make it clean. Approved. Chen looked back at Krell. Ambassador, you're about to see what a real military looks like. Try not to blink. The transmission ended. Chapter 7. The Aegis Enclave. The Sentinel's edge came alive. Engines roared to full power instantly, shedding the cold stealth profile in a burst of heat and light. Around it, 17 other warships activated in perfect synchronization, forming a spearhead formation that burned across space toward the battle. On the bridge, Commodore Iris Hale's voice was calm and methodical. All ships, combat protocols active. Target priority, Marauder command vessels first, then work outward. Fire on my mark. The Aegis warships were nothing like the Dominion's parade fleet. They were lean, angular, built for speed and lethality. Every surface served a purpose. Hull armor was reactive composite, designed to absorb and redistribute kinetic impacts. Weapon mounts were recessed and protected. Engines burned with focused efficiency. And the crews had trained for this. Marauders have noticed us, her tactical officer reported. 12 ships breaking off to intercept. Let them come, Iris said. The lead Marauder vessel, a hulking destroyer covered in scavenged plating, opened fire first, launching a barrage of unguided rockets and railgun slugs. The Sentinel's edge didn't dodge. It adjusted course by 3 degrees, and every incoming projectile missed by meters. Simultaneously, the ship's primary railgun fired once. The Marauder destroyer exploded. Target down, Malik reported. 11 remaining. The Aegis fleet didn't slow. They punched through the Marauder intercept line like a knife through cloth, weapons firing in precise, controlled bursts. Each shot found its mark. Engines. Weapon mounts. Command bridges. No wasted ammunition. No collateral damage. Just cold, mechanical efficiency. Within 90 seconds, all 12 Marauder intercept ships were drifting wrecks. Commodore, the communications officer said. The Marauder flagship is hailing us. Iris's eyes narrowed. Put them through. A scarred, reptilian face appeared on screen, Clan Chief Vrax, leader of the largest Marauder band in the sector. His voice was a guttural snarl. Human. You defend the weak Dominion fleet. No, Iris said flatly. I'm defending my system. You're trespassing. Vrax laughed, a harsh, rasping sound. Your system? You have 18 ships. I have 51. You cannot. 47, Iris corrected. Vrax paused. What? You had 63 ships when you arrived. You lost 12 to us and 4 more to the Dominion before they collapsed. That leaves 47. And in approximately 4 minutes, you'll have 0. Vrax's expression shifted from amusement to confusion to something that looked almost like respect. You are bold, human. But boldness does not. Weapons free, Iris said, cutting him off. All ships engage. The Aegis fleet split into 3 groups, each one moving with perfect coordination. They didn't charge recklessly, they maneuvered using speed and positioning to isolate Marauder ships, cutting off retreat vectors and forcing them into overlapping fire zones. The Marauders fought back hard. They were experienced, brutal, and unafraid. But they were scattered, disorganized, built for raiding soft targets. The Aegis Enclave was built for war. Chapter 8, The Cleanup. Krell Voss watched from the Sovereign Dawn as humanity's warships dismantled the Marauder fleet. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Human ships moved like predators, never staying still, never exposing themselves unnecessarily. They fired, repositioned, fired again. Marauder vessels exploded or went dark, one after another, in a relentless cascade. How are they doing this? Tarek whispered beside him. Krell didn't answer. He couldn't. He had spent his entire career believing the Dominion's fleet was untouchable, That size and appearance alone were enough to control the galaxy. But watching the humans fight, he understood the truth. The Dominion had never fought a war. Not a real one. Humanity had. Within 8 minutes, the Marauder fleet was gone. Some ships fled into hyperspace, limping and damaged. Most were left as debris, drifting silently in the void. The Sentinel's edge slowed to a stop near the Sovereign Dawn. A transmission came through. Commodore Hale's face appeared on screen, calm and composed as if she had just finished a routine patrol. "Ambassador Voss," she said. "The Marauders have been neutralized. Your fleet is secure." Krell swallowed hard. "Thank you. Thank you." Iris studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. "You came here to intimidate us. To make us surrender through fear. Do you understand now why that didn't work?" Krell nodded slowly, unable to meet her eyes. "Good," Iris said. "Then let me make something very clear. Humanity doesn't respond to threats. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years before we ever reached the stars. We learned how to build real warships, how to train real soldiers, how to fight real wars. What you brought here today, that was theater." She leaned forward slightly. "So here's what happens next. You're going to repair your ships, leave our system and report back to your Dominion Council. And you're going to tell them that Earth is not a target. We're not a prize. We're a line you don't cross." Krell's throat tightened. "And if the Council doesn't listen?" Iris's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "Then we'll teach them the same lesson we just taught the Marauders." The transmission ended. The report. 3 days later, Krell Voss stood before the Dominion Council on the homeworld of Zevros Prime. The council chamber was vast and ornate, designed to reinforce the power and permanence of the Dominion. 12 high counselors sat in elevated thrones arranged in a semicircle, their robes shimmering with embedded circuitry that displayed their house sigils. At the center sat Supreme Arbiter Velner, the oldest and most feared member of the council. Krell had rehearsed his report 100 times during the journey home. He had tried to frame the disaster in diplomatic language to soften the blow, to minimize his own failures. But standing there, under the weight of their stares, all his carefully chosen words evaporated. "We lost 91 ships," he said quietly. "The humans saved us." Silence filled the chamber. Counselor Drexus, a younger member known for his aggression, leaned forward. "You were sent with 280 vessels, the largest armada we have assembled in a century, and you're telling us that a single primitive world humiliated you?" "They're not primitive," Krell said, his voice firmer now. "That was our mistake. We assumed technological development meant they would be like the others, scattered, fearful, desperate for guidance. But humans are different." "Different how?" Velner asked, his ancient voice like gravel. Krell looked up at the Supreme Arbiter. "They've been fighting wars since before they left their own planet. Real wars. Not threats. Not posturing. Actual combat where entire civilizations were at stake. Their military doctrine, their ship designs, their tactics, all of it was forged in conflict we can't even imagine." He pulled up a holographic display showing the Aegis Enclave's engagement with the Marauders. 18 human ships destroyed 63 Marauder vessels in 8 minutes. Not because they had superior numbers or overwhelming firepower, but because they knew how to fight. Every movement was calculated. Every shot deliberate. They didn't waste a single weapon discharge. The council watched the recording in silence as human warships moved with surgical precision through the Marauder fleet. "And their commander," Krell continued, "Commodore Iris Hale, she didn't threaten us. She didn't gloat. She simply told us the truth. Earth is not a target. It's a line we don't cross." Counselor Drexus scoffed. "One successful engagement doesn't make them invincible. We could return with 5 times the ships, properly armed this time." "No," Krell interrupted, surprising himself with his own firmness. "We can't." Drexus's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? I've studied their civilization since we left," Krell said. "Humans don't just have one military. They have dozens, separate nations, all with their own fleets, all coordinating under a unified defense structure when threatened. What we faced was a fraction of their total capability. If we returned with 5,000 ships, they would meet us with 10,000. And they would win." He paused, letting that sink in. "But more importantly," he continued, "they don't want to fight us. Commodore Hale could have destroyed our entire fleet while the Marauders were attacking. We were helpless. But she didn't. She saved us. She sent a message: leave them alone and they'll leave us alone." Supreme Arbiter Velner studied Krell for a long moment, his expression unreadable. You believe we should abandon expansion into their region of space, Velner said finally. I believe, Krell said carefully, that we should consider a different approach. The Dominion has grown through intimidation and absorption of weaker species. That strategy doesn't work with humans. But perhaps we don't need it to. Explain, Velner commanded. Krell took a breath. What if we approach them as equals? Propose trade, cultural exchange, mutual defense agreements? Humans have technology we don't, real combat experience, defensive systems, tactical doctrine. And we have resources they need, access to established trade routes, diplomatic connections, scientific data from hundreds of worlds. Drexus laughed bitterly. You want us to negotiate with them? After they embarrassed us? I want us to survive, Krell said quietly. Because if we make humans our enemies, we won't. The chamber fell silent again. Finally, Velner spoke. Your report is noted, Ambassador. The Council will deliberate. You are dismissed. Krell bowed and left, his heart heavy. He had told them the truth, but he wasn't sure it would matter. The Dominion had spent centuries being the strongest force in their region of space. Accepting that humanity was stronger, that they had been surpassed, would require a humility the Council had never shown. Krell could only hope they were wise enough to learn. The Galactic Network. The story spread faster than anyone expected. Within 2 weeks, every major civilization in 3 sectors had heard about the Zevran Dominion's failed attempt to intimidate Earth. The details varied depending on who was telling it, but the core truth remained. Humanity had laughed at the Dominion's Grand Armada, then saved it from total destruction. On the trading station Nexus Point 7, representatives from dozens of species gathered in the central plaza, watching the leaked footage on public screens. A Kelthran merchant, her 4 arms crossed skeptically, watched human warships tear through the Marauder fleet. This footage is authentic? Verified by 3 independent sources, replied a Vorten information broker, his ocular implants flickering. The humans call it their Aegis Enclave. Only 18 ships. They've apparently got 12 other defense networks scattered throughout their system. 13, corrected a small, insectoid Chittic observer. My government's intelligence division has been monitoring them since the incident. They're paranoid, fortified, and extremely well-armed. The Kelthran merchant's expression shifted from skepticism to interest. And they're open to trade? According to preliminary contacts, yes, the Vorten said. But they're selective. They want partners, not clients. And they absolutely will not tolerate intimidation. A hulking Drexer warrior, scarred from countless battles, laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. Finally, a species that understands strength doesn't come from looking powerful. It comes from being powerful. Are you suggesting alliance? The Kelthran asked. The Drexer grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. I'm suggesting we don't make the same mistake the Dominion did. Humans respect strength and honesty. Show them both and they'll do business. Threaten them. He gestured at the screen where another Marauder ship exploded. Well, you've seen what happens. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. Some species were intimidated, pulling back from human space entirely. Others saw opportunity, a powerful new civilization that valued competence over hierarchy. And a few, like the Drexer, saw something else, a potential ally in a galaxy that was becoming increasingly dangerous. The Visitor. 6 weeks after the incident, an unmarked courier ship requested permission to dock at Earth's lunar orbital station. The pilot identified herself as Envoy Sheris of the Talvek Union, a mid-sized civilization known for its neutrality and extensive intelligence network. The Talvek had never been part of the Dominion, but they maintained careful diplomatic relations with nearly everyone. Director Sarah Chen met her personally in one of the station's diplomatic suites. Sheris was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large, expressive eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She moved with a grace that suggested either dance training or combat experience. Chen suspected both. Director Chen, Sheris said, her voice melodic. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice. Envoy Sheris, Chen replied, gesturing to a seat. Your message said this was urgent but not hostile. That combination always interests me. Sheris smiled faintly and sat. I'll be direct. The Talvek Union has been observing humanity for some time, discreetly, of course. Your encounter with the Zevran Dominion accelerated our timeline. Timeline for what? Contact. Formal relations. Possibly alliance. Sheris folded her hands. The galaxy is changing, Director. The Dominion's failure has created a power vacuum in 3 sectors. Species that were cowed by intimidation are now questioning whether the old powers are as strong as they claimed. There will be conflict. Possibly war. Chen's expression remained neutral. And you want to know which side humanity will be on? No, Shara said. We want to know if humanity will allow there to be sides at all. Chen raised an eyebrow. Explain. Your response to the Dominion was strategically brilliant, Shara said. You didn't destroy them when you could have. You didn't gloat or demand tribute. You simply demonstrated capability and set boundaries. That kind of restraint is rare. Most species with your level of military power would have used it to expand aggressively. We've learned that expansion through conquest is expensive and unsustainable, Chen said. Usually ends badly for everyone involved. Exactly, Shara said, leaning forward. And that lesson, that wisdom, is something the galaxy desperately needs right now. The Talvik Union believes humanity could be a stabilizing force. Not through domination but through example. Chen studied the envoy carefully. You're asking us to become peacekeepers. The New Dawn. Commodore Iris Hale stood in the observation deck of the newly commissioned Vanguard station, watching construction crews work on the latest additions to Earth's defense network. Commander Malik approached from behind. The Council approved the expansion. 6 new battle groups, 12 additional defense platforms, and enhanced sensor arrays throughout the outer system. Good, Iris said. We got lucky with the Dominion. The next visitors might not be so easily discouraged. Do you think they'll come back? Malik asked. Iris was quiet for a moment. Some of them will. Not all species learn from defeat the way we do. But that's not what worries me. What does? What comes after? Iris gestured toward the viewport, where Earth hung blue and perfect against the stars. We just announced ourselves to the galaxy. We showed them we're strong, capable, and not interested in conquest. That's going to attract attention, some of it good, some of it dangerous. The Talvik envoy's proposal? Malik guessed. That's part of it, Iris said. If we accept, we become involved in galactic politics. If we refuse, we risk isolation. Either way, Earth's position in the universe just changed fundamentally. Malik nodded slowly. We're not the hidden newcomers anymore. No, Iris agreed. We're players now. Whether we wanted to be or not. They stood in silence, watching the work crews and the distant stars. For what it's worth, Malik said eventually, I think we're ready. Humanity's been preparing for this, for first contact, for conflict, for our place among other species, for decades. We built the Aegis Enclave. We trained for scenarios most people thought were science fiction. And when it mattered, we didn't flinch. Iris smiled faintly. No, we didn't. She pulled up a tactical display showing not just Earth's system but the surrounding sectors, known civilizations, trade routes, political boundaries, and potential threats. Send a message to the other defense network commanders, Iris said. Full readiness protocols. We're not expecting trouble, but we're not going to be caught unprepared either. And the Talvik proposal? That's above my authority, Iris said. But if the Council asks my opinion, I'll tell them the same thing I told Ambassador Voss. Humanity doesn't back down from threats, but we're willing to work with anyone who approaches us honestly. Malik grinned. Think the galaxy's ready for that? Probably not, Iris said. But they're about to find out anyway. Chapter 13, The Dominion's Choice. On Zevros Prime, the Dominion Council reached its decision. Supreme Arbiter Velner stood before the assembly, his ancient face carved with centuries of experience and authority. The motion to pursue punitive action against Earth has been rejected, he announced. By a vote of 8-4. Councillor Drexus rose from his seat, his face flushed with anger. This is cowardice. The Dominion does not retreat from primitives who... They are not primitives, Velner interrupted, his voice sharp despite his age. That is the lesson you refuse to learn, Drexus. Humanity has forced us to confront an uncomfortable truth. We have grown complacent. Our strength was never tested because we only challenged those weaker than ourselves. He gestured to the holographic display showing human warships in action. Humans are not weaker. They are experienced, disciplined, and prepared. Engaging them in conflict would cost us dearly even if we won, which is far from certain. The Council has decided to pursue a different path. What path? Drexus demanded. Coexistence, Velner said simply. We will establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. We will propose trade agreements and cultural exchange. And we will make it clear that the Dominion respects strength when it is demonstrated with honor. This is madness, Drexus hissed. This is evolution, Velner countered. The galaxy is changing and we must change with it. Or we will be left behind. The vote stood. The decision was final. Within days, Ambassador Krell Voss, now officially appointed as the Dominion's envoy to Earth, departed for Sol System carrying formal proposals for diplomatic recognition. He didn't know if the humans would accept, but he hoped they would. Because for the first time in his life, Krell Voss understood what it meant to respect another civilization not out of fear, but out of genuine admiration. Epilogue, the message. 6 months after the incident, a new transmission was sent from Earth to all neighboring civilizations. Director Sarah Chin appeared on screen, professional and composed. To our neighbors in the galactic community, she began. Humanity greets you. We are aware that recent events have created uncertainty about our intentions and capabilities. We want to address that directly. Earth does not seek conquest. We do not desire subjugation of other species. We believe that civilization, true civilization, is built on cooperation, mutual respect, and honest communication. However, Chin continued, her tone sharpening slightly, we will not tolerate threats. We will not submit to intimidation. And we will defend ourselves and our allies with every resource at our disposal. We invite those who approach us in good faith to establish relations. We offer trade, knowledge exchange, and partnership to any civilization that values honesty and mutual benefit. But understand this, humanity earned its place among the stars through struggle, innovation, and sacrifice. We know what we're capable of. We hope you will choose to see us as friends rather than force us to prove we can be formidable enemies. The choice as always is yours. The transmission ended. Within weeks, 17 civilizations formally requested diplomatic contact. Within months, trade agreements were established with 9 species. Within a year, the Talvik Human Coalition was officially formed, a mutual defense and cooperation pact that would reshape galactic politics for generations. And somewhere in deep space, on a marauder vessel fleeing toward the outer rim, Clan Chief Frax watched footage of Earth's warships one more time. He had survived the battle, barely. And he had learned something valuable. Humans didn't laugh because they were arrogant. They laughed because they recognized a bluff. And they laughed because they knew something the Dominion had spent centuries forgetting. Real power doesn't need to announce itself. It just is.